keeping you informed and engaged. Now more than ever. This is Seculo. We want to hear from you. Share and post your comments or call 1-800-684-3110. And now your host, Logan Seculo.
Welcome to Seculo. We're going to be taking your calls today because we got a lot of breaking news at 1-800-684-3110. Will Haynes is joining me in studio. Harry Hutchinson's going to be joining us a little bit later. But there is some big breaking news. Obviously, this morning, you may have heard the update where the Supreme Court has said it is okay to go ahead with the ban on TikTok. I'd love to get your thoughts on that. Give us a call again, like I said, at 1-800-684-3110. And as people are tuning in right now on radio, on YouTube, on Rumble, on the Salem News Channel, I know a lot of you saw that headline, and that is that the Trump inauguration had a major change, and that was just, I don't know if it's been officially announced, that has been highly, not even speculated. Sources are saying the Trump inauguration will be moving indoors. Now, the primary reason for this, you may have expected, is because of very cold weather that is coming on Monday to Washington, D.C. However, you can also look into this and say this could be a very big sigh of relief for the Secret Service. Now, it is a bummer for a lot of people who are planning on making that trip. I know there are people in our own office doing that. There are people who are involved who really want to go see that moment, family members. But unfortunately, all reports are right now that the Trump-Vance swearing-in ceremony, traditionally, that takes place, will be moving inside, likely inside the Capitol. And that's where we're at.
That's right. So clearly, there hasn't been an official announcement, but every reporter in D.C. is getting the same information from sources, which means they're getting it out there now with a official announcement with what it will look like forthcoming. But we're seeing that because of what they're calling dangerously cold temperatures expected on Monday, that they are moving it inside. That means it'll be in the rotunda there at the Capitol. And when you look at the weather, this isn't typically, we're not giving you 10-day forecast here, but on Monday, it is a high of 24 degrees, a low of 9, expected to be around 22, 23 degrees around the time of the swearing in. People are obviously there for hours upon hours beforehand as they try to get their position in on the lawn.
One of my friends that has a ticketed version says that he had to arrive at 5 a.m.
Right.
So, I mean, you're talking about a very cold even sun coming up. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm actually looking at the comments, and a lot of you are very happy about this and are really, mainly because of safety. Obviously, everyone was concerned when you've had multiple assassination attempts on a presidential candidate, what this looks like. And sadly, this is the state of America. I think this is something we could hopefully get away from soon. But right now, the safety and security of everyone is dealing with this. Now, I encourage you to give me a call because I want to know your thoughts at 1-800-684-3110. This also comes on just hours ago, the Supreme Court ruling that the ban on TikTok could go in place, could continue to happen, and that could happen as early as Monday. However, it looks like President Biden is going to kick it down the road, put a hold on this, and let the Trump administration figure out what to do. Now, there's a lot of thoughts. A lot of people are happy about this. A lot of people are sad. I'll tell you, I have a lot of mixed feelings. Here in our own office, you cannot use TikTok on our servers. That is for security reasons. So clearly, we know there is an issue there because we do not allow that on our servers. However, you also have an economy built on that for a lot of people. So I'm very concerned when you ever start censoring speech. Yes, the reason that they are trying to censor TikTok isn't really to do with the speech being homegrown in America or even the speech being controlled. It is where your data and your privacy is going, how they can be a part of that. Give us a call. I'd love to hear your thoughts because this one, I think there's a conservative libertarian point of view here that is a bit at odds. I'd love to hear your thoughts and on your thoughts on the swearing in moving indoors. We're also going to discuss a new ACLJ case that's really wild, and it involves another big tech company. So stay tuned to that. Give us a call, as I said, at 1-800-684-3110. We're facing some big challenges this year. We got a new administration taking office in just a few days, and we know we have to be ready. So the ACLJ, we're planning to defend liberty. I can't wait for you to hear this one. You're going to be shocked by this one coming up in just a few segments of really what's happening to the American people. 1-800-684-3110, but become an ACLJ champion right now at aclj.org/champions.
The high High Court has just declined to stop a ban of TikTok, now set to take effect on Sunday.
ByteDance is a foreign entity. It does not have First Amendment rights. Why would it? TikTok is the U.S. entity, but they've got to separate under this law.
The app is owned by a Chinese company, and lawmakers on both sides of the aisle have said that it is a national security risk. Today's decision comes after the court heard arguments from TikTok against the law that essentially forces its parent company to sell its operations here.
They heard arguments a week ago today, and they turned this decision around in 7 days and had to based on the deadline that was coming up on Sunday.
The justices said, look, we're not controlling the content of speech. We're just really focusing on the ownership of the company. That's a different type of matter. And the justices had some division on that point. Some were still concerned, including Gorsuch, over the free speech implications of this type of action.
Both the outgoing Biden administration and the incoming Trump administration, they've both said that they may try to keep the app going.
There is a provision within the law that says a president can delay this for 90 days if there is significant progress on a divestiture deal. Will President-elect try to argue that there is?
Almost every rational person would say, okay, I'll take my tens of billions of dollars, I'll bank it, and I'll bring that in and use it to help the company in other parts. The other option, I think this is really important, the other option is China could just say, to heck with you, we're shutting down the app, we're not going to be active in the United States anymore. Wow. If they take that latter option, isn't it a default acknowledgement that essentially this is a spying app and that is the value that China sees for it? Because otherwise, why wouldn't you take the tens of billions of dollars from an American buyer?
Welcome back to Secular. We are obviously covering kind of two big breaking news stories, the TikTok story, and President Trump just put out some sort of statement because of the cold, saying he doesn't want to see injuries, moving the inauguration inside. It could be a disappointment to a lot of people, but I see a lot of great comments coming in. People are actually happy that he's taking this step. But Rick Grinnell is joining us at the last second. Rick, I appreciate you calling in because you were pretty early on telling us about the issues that were coming out of TikTok years ago, what the concerns were, not necessarily calling for a ban on TikTok, but said, hey, if you're concerned about your privacy, don't have it on your phone. We don't allow it on our servers here at the ACLJ. And some of that was due to your advice. However, we're at this point now where the Supreme Court has ruled that they can ban it, but you have President Trump coming out and saying, you know what? And I think he's right in this, saying we need to figure out a way to move forward.
Yeah, look, this is a difficult issue. And I think President Trump is going about it the right way. Remember, we tried early in the days of TikTok to just ban it or get an American company to host it. That was kind of the compromise. That didn't work. The court said, no, you can't ban it. So the President Trump followed the rule of law, followed what the court said, and said, okay, well, let's try to get a more aggressive ownership of an American. That's where we are now. It hasn't been able to be solved in the Biden administration. So once again, here's another issue that has to come back to Donald Trump's plate. And we're going to have to make sure that we find an American firm to not only buy it, but to host it so that you can really mitigate as much as possible the information flow back to communist China. Remember, they don't allow the current version of TikTok that's available in the United States. The Chinese don't allow that version in China.
Right.
And so there's a lot of questions for how do you mitigate the problems. But I do think that President Trump is right that, we've got some of the same aggressive problems with Facebook, Instagram, some of the other social media platforms have not always been,
friendly.
Friendly or just pro free speech,
right?
And not manipulating the content in some way. So I think this is yet just another problem that TikTok has in the larger issue of social media.
Right, because at least with Meta, with Facebook, or with X, even before when it was Twitter, we could at least turn to it and go, Mark Zuckerberg, runs this. Now, Elon Musk or Jack Dorsey, there were American faces or very known people who are running it. I don't think most people, if you said who is running TikTok, the transparency is not there. We know it's not there. However, you do have a situation where a lot of Americans have built 90% plus for a lot of these creators and influencers. A lot of their revenue comes through TikTok directly or indirectly. And again, I know a lot of you will go, well, that's just, influencer culture and all that. But think about even the people who have, I used an example, created a candle company that went viral on TikTok. You do have to think about those people because they are Americans contributing to society. Now, you are right. The TikTok version in China is very education-based. It is not this endless sea of mind reading, which is what it does feel like when you're using it. But maybe this will be a moment where we'll see some change because there are some big voices, some big names in tech and in media that have come and said, hey, we want to buy it. And now it's, I guess, the question of, does China say, great, we'll happily sell it to you? Or does China say, well, then now we don't even have the influence we want out of it? Oh, well.
I think China will absolutely sell it. They realize what a huge deal it is. There'll be some sort of a partnership. But let's remember one thing. Mark Zuckerberg and Meta spent billions of dollars to hire people that were responsible for looking at the content of users on Facebook. My mother's content, when she would update her status. Facebook employed people to look at that to say, is this accurate information or is this misinformation?
Right.
We've gone from opinions being illegal in this country. And Mark Zuckerberg was at the forefront of that. I'm sorry, but I'm not easily swayed with, suddenly he's now a fan of Donald Trump after Donald Trump won the popular vote. I think Mark Zuckerberg is a big fan of money.
Well, if you run into him at the inauguration, let us know. Let us know what he thinks. Go ahead, Will.
And Rick, I think what we have here also is two issues that for the audience to think about as well as one, yes, we've had an issue with the way that especially these American social media companies have acted, have acquiesced to the censorship that the government wanted to impose. And whether that is, as you mentioned, because they're going to go with the winds of the administration if they want to make more money. But at the end of the day, it still was inappropriate, unconstitutional actions that were happening across social media platforms when it came to censorship. But then you also have to look at the TikTok issue, which on its face has a lot of the same issues with data privacy, the ability to look across your device at other things and garner information that way, which our American companies are doing too. But the difference here with TikTok is that it's a adversarial foreign government that is able to get this. And you think of the national security implications across the board. If our soldiers have this on their phone, if people within the administration or within the bureaucracies have this on their phone, and the ability to easily lose track of things to a foreign adversary is really what the impetus for this was. But we still have a lot of other issues with the privacy issues, as conservatives especially, that are going rampant with other apps in this country.
Well, when I was in high school, I remember thinking, I'm never going to be that old stuffy person that says, get off my lawn or turn down that music. I always thought of myself as hip and cool and, pop culture driven. And I now have to admit to you that I don't allow TikTok into my home. After being the DNI and seeing how the Chinese operate, I'm not very popular with my friends' kids or my nephews and nieces because I don't want that product in my home. And so I ask people who come in, I'm that stick in the mud. When you come into my home, I ask you if you've got TikTok on your phone to leave the phone outside.
Well, that should say it all, Rick. That is a pretty – and look, you've told us that, and that's one of the reasons that we do not have it here on our servers locally, here in the offices. We don't tell our, employees what to download or not download, but we make sure that we don't have it at least connected to our servers. Rick, I appreciate you calling in. I know it was just at the last second here. But I wanted to get, because I knew you were on the forefront of all of this originally, so I just wanted to get your thoughts. Obviously, we're looking at Washington, D.C. right now. A lot of people coming into town for the inauguration. There is reports right now that that'll be moved inside, so it's going to be a little bit different, but it still will be a pretty wild week coming up.
All the best. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks for joining us. Give us a call, by the way, right now, 1-800-684-3110. A lot of you called in and didn't stay on hold because you got to let our screeners do their job. So just stay on hold. Even if you just hear it ringing, give it a little bit. We'll try to get to you, and we'll be back in just a minute with more calls and questions. Let's go to Robin, who's calling in Nevada on line 1. Robin, you're on the air.
Hey, thanks for having me. Is the inauguration – hold on, let me get you off echo here. Is the inauguration taking place in the same Capitol where Trump was supposed to have incited the storming of the Capitol January 2nd? Is that not poetic justice?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know if it's poetic justice, but you can at least say that it is an interesting, maybe you say, into that story.
Right, final chapter
as,
of that.
As George Lucas would say for Star Wars, it echoes. It has a moment where the theory goes around and it all comes full circle.
Does that mean that there's going to be 36 more Trump inaugurations because of the way Star Wars franchise works out?
I'm talking about the original Star Wars.
Oh, okay, got it.
History repeats itself to a way where, yes, you have these sort of big moments where you'll have this conclusion. And, yes, I think that will be part of the story in history.
Right.
I think history books will look in books, the web, the internet. We'll look back and say, our brain chips from Elon, we'll say, isn't that wild? That's a crazy into this story, if you will, that because of the weather. Now, this is not the first time the inauguration had to be moved inside. It happened to Ronald Reagan. It's happened multiple times throughout this entire run. But hey, you know what? President Trump is a Floridian now. He knows too cold. Too cold.
Right.
Too cold.
To her point, our caller's point, you can guarantee that on MSNBC and CNN, they are going to have side-by-sides,
of course,
of the swearing-in ceremony and the protesters walking through the rotunda.
Van Jones going to be crying.
They have already, as soon as this information went out, they ordered the graphics department to start mocking up the side-by-side, try to find the right angle so it looks identical, because they're going to try to repeat that forever.
Yeah, it's like my wife took a great picture of my kids walking across Abbey Road and nailed it perfectly. That's what they're going to do. They're just going to be exactly the same. Again, phone lines are open for your calls. I'd love to hear from you. Ronald, stay on hold. We'll get to you when we come back. And we're also going to talk about a new ACLJ client. This is a pretty wild story. Again, it does involve big tech and really a big push against supporters of Israel. But in this one, not even just supporters of Israel. People that survived the Holocaust. You're not going to want to miss this. Stay tuned. 1-800-684-3110. And again, I encourage you, if you like this broadcast, hit that subscribe button or become an ACLJ champion right now.
The ACLJ, remember, has been working with this hospital with these nurses. Started with one, and more additional medical staff there added on. And we sent a demand letter. It was a hospital that got bought by a bigger company. And one of the first things they did was send out a notice that the conscious protections on you being able to decide not to participate in an abortion procedure as a nurse or a medical professional were done away with. They were no longer going to allow you to have that choice to make. And we wrote a very serious demand letter to the new ownership of the hospital on behalf of those nurses and other medical professionals we represented. And the day after Christmas, victory for life and victory for conscience protections.
We sent the letter, and many times the letter doesn't resolve this. We have to go through and use federal law to fight in court when the hospital or the healthcare provider doesn't listen as they should to what the law is. But we got a great victory for this client that our demand letter was sent, and since then our client was granted full accommodation, no exceptions. This decision ensures her ability to continue her nursing career while staying true to her moral convictions. But there's a ripple effect here, too. The hospital didn't just say, okay, we'll make this nurse go away, we'll give the accommodations, but just no one else is raising concern maybe. But there were other hospital nurses that had also requested accommodations, and the hospital has since informed us that all of those that requested accommodations were granted full conscience protections to work their career in nursing, an honorable, noble career, and that their conscience won't be violated. And there are no exceptions like we're having staffing challenges.
Welcome back to Seculo. Again, we're going to take your calls. Stay on hold if you're listening right now. Just give us a minute to get screened through these. We did want to, again, bring up the breaking news that President Trump's second inauguration will be now inside the United States Capitol Rotunda. He put out a statement. It was used, obviously, by Ronald Reagan in 1985, who had his ceremonial inauguration, fun fact, at Walt Disney World at Epcot. You should watch those, look at those pictures, see those videos. If you ever wanted to see something crazy, see the president speaking out in front of Spaceship Earth. But this is what he said. I have ordered the inauguration address in addition to the prayers and other speakers to be delivered inside the United States Capitol Rotunda, as was used by Ronald Reagan in 1985, also because of very cold weather. The various dignitaries and guests will be brought into the Capitol. This will be a very beautiful experience for all, and especially for the large TV audience. We will open Capital One Arena on Monday for live viewing of this historic event and to host the presidential parade. I will join the crowd at Capital One after my swearing in. So again, Capital One Arena, though, I mean, it holds, formerly the MCI Center, for those who remember that, it probably holds a normal size of an arena, somewhere between 19,000, 20,000. Not exactly fitting everybody in there probably, but you will at least have something that people who have gotten tickets, probably those guaranteed tickets, will be able to attend. And again, this is what the big breaking news is. A lot of people are speculating, of course, the security concerns that were going to be happening of an outside event, a big event which you can't necessarily control everything. And obviously, I'm sure the Secret Service is somewhat breathing a sigh of relief, trying to figure out what to do after you've had such a chaotic 6 months or 7 months for President Trump in his run-up to the election. So again, this is what's happening. That's the big breaking news item, as well as the TikTok ban that is still set to go in place. It's up to President Trump on how that will be taken care of. And again, I wanted to cover that, make sure you guys all know what's happening here in Capital One Arena. Will happens to be where I saw my first ever WCW Monday Nitro. So for those,
that checks out.
That was the night that Sting joined the Wolfpack. So you know what? I should text Sting and get his advice. True patriot. He should have
been on air today.
He
after this breaking
news.
He's
a true patriot. That's Steve Borden.
He is.
All right, let's move a little bit to the work of the ACLJ. We have a very interesting client right now, and I think you're going to get shocked by this. For Amazon, yep, that's right. I said it. With Amazon, which we've all used, let's just be honest, everyone uses Amazon. You can put up your own book and release your own book, self-publish these books. You can order copies. This is what our client did. They ordered copies of their book, which is about a Holocaust survivor.
Her father, actually.
Her father. They probably have thousands of these churning a day, I would assume, of these self-published books. Or even published books. They are the ones providing the printing. When those books arrived directly from the Amazon warehouses and printers that create these books, if you're watching right now, either on YouTube, Rumble, or Salem News Channel, or on X, or on Facebook, this is what it looked like. When you opened up the pages, there were pages that said, Zionism kills Jews. Open up another copy of it. What do we got there? What about the blood of Palestine? Let's keep going. I think there's some more. This one is from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And if you're not watching, if you're just listening to Liberate Palestine, if you're just listening, this isn't like little marks written on the cover or written in the small print somewhere. These are giant marker, essentially graffitied over the entire pages. And what we are demanding is that Amazon give some answers to this, Will.
That's right. So these copies, every copy she received was defaced by someone within the supply chain at some point before packaging, I would assume, because I don't believe it was opened and then defaced, then repackaged. But she had reached out to Amazon, and she's an Israeli American. This book is called Daughter of the Holocaust. It is about her father, who is a Holocaust survivor. And she received inadequate responses from Amazon originally, and she was actually in Israel and had these books delivered to her son's house. So by the time when she got home, it was outside of the return window because she didn't have adequate time to check because she had them delivered to her son's home and came. So then she shows them, they're like, sorry, we can't really do anything. It's outside of our terms of service. But now she is a client of the ACLJ. this is a breach of contract from Amazon is what we are letting them know. And we're demanding from Amazon that they replace the destroyed books that were defaced with anti-Semitic hate, conduct a thorough investigation of this conduct, and provide our client with confirmation that the responsible party has been terminated, and also provide her with a report of the investigation. Now, that obviously will take time, but we are demanding a response from Amazon that they get back to us, letting us know that this will occur by January 23rd. So just early into next week, they need to provide a lot more answers and a lot more things of confirmations that they are going to move forward and start making this right.
You know they can track this back. They know the printer that was used. I mean, I'm talking about not the printer. I'm talking about the physical printer. They know where it came from. They then know where it went from there to binding, then from binding to packaging. There are cameras, I assume, and I would hope, honestly, at Amazon's warehouses for quality control, checking all of these things. They can find it, and we were going to do our best here at the ACLJ to make sure that they do. This is taken care of, and our client is taken care of. And by the way, they're taken care of, as I've said on this show numerous times, at no cost to them. I highly doubt that this person could go get a lawyer, spend the money that would take to go after and to try to be vindicated by a company like Amazon. You know, that is a true David and Goliath story in this moment. But because of the ACLJ and because of ACLJ champions, people that give on a monthly basis or people that give individually, just your donors, because all of these clients get this legal services at no cost to them. $0 out of pocket. Now, obviously, we want to be able to pay the best of the best, our best attorneys that we can get. We can't do that without your support, because one day it could be you. One day it could be me. The ACLJ is here. And by the way, if you need legal help, easy. ACLJ.org/help. If it's within our scope of what we do here, you're going to get immediately attached to an attorney and get the ball rolling. So let's do it. Again, if you listen to moments like this, you see stories like this, you see the hate that's happening in this country, you know that we can't just stand by and do nothing. So I encourage you again to go to ACLJ.org. We are going to take some more phone calls coming up. A lot of you are joining us right now, by the way, on YouTube. I can see the numbers. If you are brand new to this show, which a lot of you are, because I know, I look at the analytics, about 50% of the people who watch this show every day have never seen us before. And well over 50% don't subscribe. We do this show every day, noon to 1 p.m. Eastern live. And we put up a lot of other great content. So I encourage you right now, if you can't give or you're brand new and you're not sure if you're ready to give to the ACLJ, which supports this show, good free way to do it, hit that subscribe button. We are at 452,000 subscribers. I would love to get that well over 1 million. Let's do that right now. I mean, we're not going to be able to do that right now.
That'd be nice.
It'd be nice. But let's even get another 1,000 subs, 2,000 subs. It means more than you know. I know that sounds ridiculous because it sounds like I'm just like a YouTuber saying, please subscribe. But what this does, it gets this kind of voice. When you see what we're doing in Washington, D.C., you see what we're doing for clients like this Holocaust survivor's daughter who wrote a book about her father's experience and then had her books all defaced by Amazon, the behemoth of Amazon. And we're going to take them on. We're going to take them to court if necessary. We can't do that without your support. I encourage you to go to aclj.org to do that now. Stay on hold. If you are on hold, we're going to get to you. We're going to take some calls in the next segment and a little bit later in the broadcast. So stay tuned right now. If you don't get us for the full hour, some of your local radio stations don't carry us, find us live or later on aclj.org, YouTube, Rumble, X, and the Salem News Channel. We'll be right back on Seculo.
Some people think champions are born, that it's a title that requires something only a handful can ever possess.
There are times in our lives that we are called, every one of us, to step up and serve a cause greater than ourselves.
Even when the loudest voices in the room say it's wrong, that it can't be done. It can be a difficult stand, but it's one any of us can make, including you.
You can be the change. You can make that difference.
You can be a champion. We cannot do what we do without you.
By becoming a monthly donor, you can become a champion of life.
A champion of liberty, a champion of freedom.
Please join us. Become an ACLJ champion today.
keeping you informed and engaged. Now more than ever. This is Seculo. And now your host, Logan Seculo.
Welcome back to Seculo. We're going to be taking your calls in this segment and later on in the broadcast. Again, the breaking news that's out of Washington, D.C. is President Trump's inauguration has been announced to be moved indoors. There will be a viewing party at the Capital One Arena where the Washington Wizards play, the Washington Capitals. So there'll be a place for, if you want to say, the regular people, the fans, if you will, of President Trump, the supporters, people that are coming in from all over the country to watch this in a air-conditioned, heated environment, because it is just so cold. And obviously there's a sigh of relief in terms of the security nature that could, security risks that could happen from such a big outdoor event, especially just a few months after multiple assassination attempts. Let's just be a little bit grateful. I see some of the comments coming in saying that, so I really do appreciate that. Give us a call, 1-800-684-3110. We're going to take some calls and I'll open up some lines. Let's go ahead first. Let's go to Joseph, who's calling in Rhode Island on line 3, who is watching on one of our new homes, the Salem News Channel, which is available as a 24-hour news network. A lot of other great hosts, and we're on it live now from noon to 1 p.m. Eastern. Joseph, go ahead.
Yes, Logan. I am relieved that it's being moved inside, not just for his safety, but he is elderly. And if he caught pneumonia, I know because my grandmother died from pneumonia, But I'm surprised that they didn't think of having it at Mar-a-Lago, with the big golf course, he could have fit everybody. But that's what I wanted to say. Thank you,
Joseph,
Logan.
I think there's a lot of people that feel similarly, not necessarily because of age, but because of health. And even said, I don't want anyone to get injured because obviously it's an icy area, a lot of places to slip and fall. And then you have the obvious health risk of being out in below freezing temperatures. Interesting, you brought up, should they have it in Mar-a-Lago or somewhere like that? The ceremony will definitely be taking place inside the Capitol Rotunda, as it should be. But if you look back to 1985, as I mentioned earlier, President Reagan had his second inauguration celebration, because they had to move it inside, at Epcot at Walt Disney World. So I don't know if Walt Disney World's still up for hosting an inauguration.
A little bit different times with the Walt Disney Corporation.
Ronald Reagan helped open Disneyland and was friends with Walt Disney, true patriot, Walt Disney. But there are things like that can happen. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw some form of celebration tour that happens from President Trump that feels to be kind of on track for him. But of course, we want him to get in there first and just get this country safe and sound again. And that's what we're hoping for.
And you have to think that those in the Secret Service as well are thrilled with this move. Obviously, the pomp and circumstance and President Trump's own style is to have the big outdoor celebration with a large crowd extending out down the National Mall. So I feel like he didn't make this decision lightly. It was from advice of, people are going to be out there since 5 a.m. The exposure to that kind of cold for that long is not good, and not wanting people to get hurt. But you have to think that with all of the negative and failures of the Secret Service over the past year, that they were probably weighing in on this as well and saying, if you are moving it in, it's a good move because it is clearly being indoors contained in an already very secure building, then you have to think that that's a much better thing when the entire world will be watching on Monday as President Trump is sworn in for his second term in office.
Yeah, I do think there's also not only the concern from the security point of view, because look at what happened during these confirmation hearings that are happening right now. You've had not violent protesters, but you've had very loud, obnoxious, being carried out protesters. Obviously, there will be protesters at the inauguration. I don't think there will be as many as there were before, somewhat because of this, unprecedented cold here in January in Washington, D.C. But this is a moment, again, that we'll see what the progress happens. We'll see where it goes. The reaction, though, I'm seeing on our comments, people are, I don't want to say excited, but maybe relieved. Because you're not going to be watching an event with that just concern maybe the whole time if security is really in place or not. Phone lines are open for your calls, 1-800-684-3110. Also, Kristi Noem is up right now doing her confirmation hearing. We'll discuss that as well as continue the updates on TikTok, do the updates on President Trump's inauguration, and take your calls. We'll be right back.
Trump's DHS Secretary pick, Governor Kristi Noem, will appear before the Senate Homeland Security Committee and is expected to face questions about, among other things, the border.
This comes as outgoing Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas defends his time on the job, saying, quote, the border right now is more secure than it was at the end of 2019.
Were there things that you either wished you could have accomplished or frankly had done differently? And the reason I ask is because I wonder whether some of the issues around the border and other things ultimately led actually to Vice President Harris losing to now President Trump.
I wish that we had more time, and that would enable us to do more, not only in furtherance of our mission, but in the service of the American people.
Senator, no, the southern border is not secure today, but in just 3 days, we will have a new president in this country, President Donald J. Trump, and he will secure our border.
President-elect Trump has promised to carry out the largest deportation operation in U.S. history. And before those operations begin, some migrants are already choosing to leave the country voluntarily.
It's not just Trump's deportation plans that are influenced these decisions. Vasquez says it's also that Mexico is now open to accepting non-Mexican deportees. Mexico's move would impact Cuban and Venezuelan migrants the most, since those countries typically do not accept deportation flights from the U.S., but may from Mexico.
We know we got 3,500% increase in people on terrorist watch list being apprehended at our borders. So yeah, I think we need to shut the border down. We need to get control of the border. We can't keep bailing out buckets of water. We got to plug the hole first. So let us plug the hole and we start bailing out water, but we got to secure that border. Secure borders saves lives and it protects our national security. You can't have strong national security if you don't have border security. We got to know who's coming in, what's coming in, where's coming in, and why it's coming in.
Welcome back to Seculo. I did want to address, because we have so many new people joining us right now, I can tell the numbers and on YouTube and on Rumble and all of that. You may have saw that headline, breaking Trump inauguration pushed indoors. That has been officially announced now, even by President Trump. There will be a viewing party that will be happening at the Capital One Arena. That's where the Wizards and the Capitals play. So it holds about 20,000-ish. That's going to be happening during the live event. And then President Trump is going to travel from the Capitol Rotunda, where they'll be doing the indoor event. He'll be traveling to this arena. Again, twofold. One is the weather. It is going to be well below freezing. So a lot of people out there at 5 a.m. or earlier to get their spot. Not good for people's health. And then you have the security concerns. Now, they're not addressing the security concerns, but I can tell you by just looking at the comments, I know a lot of you are thinking that way. And there's a lot of people going, I'm relieved. So I'm sure that's true for people within the Secret Service as well. We are going to take some more phone calls, 1-800-684-3110, and we have been discussing the ban on TikTok. Brief update on that. Supreme Court said it can happen. Biden administration looks to be punting it to President Trump, and it is in his hands. He hopes to have a new seller that can get that done, a new American buyer who will buy TikTok and have more transparency and less information going to the Chinese government. Right now, though, we want to shift gears a little bit, Will, and talk about what's going on in Washington as this transition period of time is happening.
That's right. As we see the incoming cabinet members go through their confirmation hearings, and we have Professor Harry Hutchison joining us, we are also seeing, maybe not getting as much play, but a lot of interviews, farewell speeches from current cabinet members. We're seeing Attorney General Merrick Garland had a ceremony yesterday at the FBI to thank them for their hard work over the past 4 years. He was presented with a Tommy gun from Director Ray.
I mean, when you say that, it's like, there's the picture. Image. If you're watching on any of our platforms, our visual platforms, which you should be, by the way, there it is. I mean, a mob boss style video game looking Tommy gun.
And now Christopher Wray said, this is from, the beginning of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. This was kind of the arms that they used at the time. And so that's what the symbolism is. I think that they completely lost the symbolism that everyone associates that with the mob. And you are now saying, Merrick Garland, here's a symbol of the mob, which, I don't know, maybe people have been criticizing the tactics of the FBI of being a little mob-like over the last 4 years.
I mean, it's got the orange tip at the end, so this is a replica. This isn't real. It's not something to work. But still, even the imagery of giving a gun.
Merrick Garland did say, I hope this is legal. And he goes, and the ATF guy, I think, is here, so maybe he can clear it.
Yeah, it's like when Elvis snuck a gun in to give to Nixon.
Even the attorney general is questioning, well, maybe I shouldn't be getting this. But,
Right.
he's not really a gun guy himself. But then you're also seeing he made a statement during this speech where he said, the story has been told by some outside this building about what has happened inside of it is wrong. You have worked to pursue justice, not politics. That is the truth, and nothing can change it. Professor Hutchison, what are your thoughts on this revisionist history that Merrick Garland is trying to put out into the world before his time is up?
Well, Will, it's increasingly clear that delusional Democrats continue to live in the exciting world of make-believe. So this past Thursday, we have Attorney General Merrick Garland, who urged Department of Justice staffers to resist any efforts by the incoming Trump administration to weaponize the DOJ. It's clear beyond question that Merrick Garland's analysis is exactly backward. What the American people have witnessed over the past 7 to 8 years under both the Obama administration and the Biden administration is the political weaponization of the DOJ against Donald Trump. I mean, who could forget the effort to prevent Donald Trump from actually appearing on the ballot within the meaning of the 14th Amendment of the Constitution? Who could forget Jack Smith's multiple efforts to incarcerate Donald Trump based on an alleged election interference claim in Washington, D.C., and based on a classified documents case in Florida? Who could forget published reports of alleged cooperation between the DOJ and Alvin Bragg and the reported cooperation between Fani Willis in Georgia and the DOJ? And who could forget the January 6th House Committee and Liz Cheney preening before the cameras, the Russia collusion investigation, Crossfire Hurricane, you name it. There have been multiple efforts by Democrats to essentially prevent Donald Trump from becoming president. And then once he became president in 2016, multiple efforts to prevent him from acting effectively, including 2 impeachment cases. So I think at the end of the day, the Democrats have got it exactly backward, and it is very good to see the back of Merrick Garland because he's been one of the most incompetent attorney generals in American history.
And Professor Hutchison, I also want to bring up, because Kristi Noem, the governor of South Dakota, is currently today having hearings on her nomination to lead the Department of Homeland Security. And we're seeing Alejandro Mayorkas, the impeached director of Homeland Security. As Nancy Pelosi liked to say, once you're impeached forever. He was impeached by the House of Representatives. They did not have a trial in the Senate over his impeachment. But he went on CNBC and was having a discussion, and the host actually asked him pretty straightforward, a lot of your work on the border, many point to that as being one of the decisive factors to the loss by Kamala Harris in November, and he was asking his take on that. So this is him responding. This is bite 4 from the outgoing impeached Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas.
I'm not sure I'm in a position to agree or disagree with your political conclusion as to what determined the election in November. There are different views having been expressed. I wish that we had more time, and that would enable us to do more, not only in furtherance of our mission, but in the service of the American people. And I don't tend to look back like that. I look forward and see what is ahead and what can be ahead for the benefit of the American people.
Professor Hutchison, there was only one Secretary of Homeland Security during the tenure of Joe Biden in the White House.
More time.
And normally, sometimes there is turnover within these agencies over the course of a first term, but there was only one. There was Alejandro Mayorkas. He had 4 years to not create the disaster that they created And yet he's asking and saying that he wishes they had more time to further their mission. I don't know if he's talking about more time to completely eviscerate any semblance of a border for the United States or what. But there was another bite where he also almost threw the people above him, the president, vice president, under the bus by saying, a lot of different views are expressed. And then once it's decided what we're going to do, everyone has to unify. So maybe he's trying to rewrite history a little bit, say it's not all my fault. But that statement there alone of saying, I wish I had more time, is the most perfect descriptor of this Biden administration, where everything they did for 4 years seemed to be just chaotic, and yet they wish they had more time.
Absolutely. So I think if you look at Mr. Mayorkas, it's imperative to note that the translation of what he said about having more time simply means more time to demonstrate beyond cavil and beyond question his incompetence. There have been few DHS secretaries who have been more incompetent than Mr. Mayorkas. He told the American people that the border is closed. He told the American people that the border is secure. That is one of the greatest lies in American history. So I think, again, the American people will be happy to see him go. I hope at the end of the day he can find work, perhaps as a janitor or someone else.
Or on MSNBC. It's the same thing.
He may get a tenure professorship at Harvard. There's a lot of academic jobs that he could get, Professor.
Yeah, I don't want to talk bad about anyone in that services because, what, they're doing the hard work out there. But hopefully, like I said, he'll end up on MSNBC. No one will be able to see him. It's fine. They don't have a boss. It's what's happening right now. We only have 50 seconds left. I'm going to take your calls coming up in the next segment. 1-800-684-3110. 1-800-684-3110. We urgently need your support here at the ACLJ. I encourage you to do that right now. We got a great lineup of calls coming up as well. So stay on hold. If you're in Oklahoma, South Carolina, Maryland, Arizona, all our calls. And if you're brand new and you're wondering what happened with President Trump, why moving to indoors, we'll state that coming up in the next segment. We'll also talk about the Tik Tok ban as well. And if you are watching right now and you haven't subscribed, I encourage you to do that on YouTube, on Rumble, however you're watching this, Facebook, like the page. Do whatever you need to do to stay engaged with what we're doing here at the ACLJ. We do a show each and every day, so be a part of that as well. And I encourage you, make a comment. If you don't know what to comment, I like reading in the breaks. Where are you watching from? Be right back.
The High Court has just declined to stop a ban of TikTok, now set to take effect on Sunday.
ByteDance is a foreign entity. It does not have First Amendment rights. Why would it? TikTok is the U.S. entity, but they've got to separate under this law.
The app is owned by a Chinese company, and lawmakers on both sides of the aisle have said that it is a national security risk. Today's decision comes after the court heard arguments from TikTok against the law that essentially forces its parent company to sell its operations here.
They heard arguments a week ago today, and they turned this decision around in 7 days and had to based on the deadline that was coming up on Sunday.
The justices said, look, we're not controlling the content of speech. We're just really focusing on the ownership of the company. That's a different type of matter. And the justices had some division on that point. Some were still concerned, including Gorsuch, over the free speech implications of this type of action.
Both the outgoing Biden administration and the incoming Trump administration, they've both said that they may try to keep the app going.
There is a provision within the law that says a president can delay this for 90 days if there is significant progress on a divestiture deal. Will President-elect try to argue that there is?
Almost every rational person would say, okay, I'll take my tens of billions of dollars, I'll bank it, and I'll bring that in and use it to help the company in other parts. The other option, I think this is really important, the other option is China could just say, to heck with you, we're shutting down the app, we're not going to be active in the United States anymore. Wow. If they take that latter option, isn't it a default acknowledgement that essentially this is a spying app and that is the value that China sees for it? Because otherwise, why wouldn't you take the tens of billions of dollars from an American buyer?
Welcome back to Seculo. I love hearing from the most important voice in the room. Of course, that's you, our callers. Phone lines are open at 1-800-684-3110. As we clear through these, there'll be more availability. So do that now or start getting on hold. Well, we got a lot to go through. Let's go to Lori, who's calling. You've been on hold for a long time, Lori. A lot of you have, so stay on hold. Lori in Arizona watching on YouTube. Welcome.
Hello. Thanks for talking to me. I just have a comment. And as far as the inauguration ceremony location is at, it doesn't matter to me. I just want him sworn in as President of the United States. And then the closer that he's to that desk where he signs those executive orders, the sooner our country can get back on track.
Lori, I think that's a lot of us. A lot of us just want the safety and security to return once again.
Well, and even remember, though, as you think about these things, the first inauguration, he did the very unprecedented move of getting out of the limousine and walking down Pennsylvania Avenue with Barron and Melania. And a lot of people were like, is he going to try to do that again? And I think the answer on that was going to be no. I don't think that the Secret Service would have allowed that at this point. The inauguration, while secure, and they put as many Secret Service individuals on it as possible and as many resources throughout the federal government as they can on it. When you're exposed in a city, there's only so much threat mitigation you can do, especially if it's a moving pathway. And I think that the Secret Service would not have allowed that to risk any sort of disruption or failure, again, based off the year they've had. But moving it indoors, I think, is a sigh of relief for those at the Secret Service that they can contain that ceremony 100% indoors. But I think we should go on to another call.
Yep, continuing on. Let's go to Susan, who's calling in Maryland, watching on YouTube. Susan, go ahead.
Yeah, I just called to thank ACLJ for taking the Amazon case.
Yes.
For defamed Holocaust books. I am not Jewish, but I am more than honored to support your decision to represent this case. Thank you very much.
Susan, I'm glad you called in. And if you didn't see that, if you're brand new watching, ACLJ, by the way, if you're brand new, I know half of you are. We also are not just a television show, we're not just a YouTube show or a podcast. We are also a law firm, public interest law firm, where if you need us and at no cost, we will represent you. And what she was referring to is a case that we now have, or a client that we now have. It could turn into a case where the person had created a book, which you can do, and uploaded it to Amazon and ordered it from Amazon to be delivered. And this book happened to be about her father, who was a Holocaust survivor. And when the books arrived, when you open them up, as you can see right now, they were all defaced. Every single copy of them defaced with anti-Semitic rhetoric. What about the blood of Palestine? Zionism kills Jews. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. All of those tropes written in all the books. What about this? What about that? And Amazon kind of said, well, there's nothing we can do. It's outside of our return policy. Well, we're going to make sure that Amazon does respond to this. Everyone uses Amazon. Okay, let's not live in a world where we don't. I know a lot of you are saying you wish you couldn't. Well, that's fine, but most people do have to use or do use Amazon. It's great service, great what they do. However, they should not just roll over to anti-Semitism coming from inside of their own company. So we are going to respond to that aggressively, Will. We've told them there's a deadline. Now we got 2 calls, still want to hit. There's a deadline for them to respond because we know they have cameras. We know they have ways to find out who this individual is and to take care of the problem.
Right. I don't think that they have the cover of saying, we didn't have enough data to be able to figure this
exactly.
out. They can figure out what you're thinking 3 weeks from now, what you may want to purchase. But I think it is also important to reiterate this case. I don't know that if the Biden administration had allowed the rampant anti-Semitism to just fester in this country over the past almost year and a half now, that it would have even been someone as brazen enough to think that they could deface every product that someone ordered with anti-Semitic tropes, which was a daughter writing a memoir about her father who was a Holocaust survivor, and they thought they could get away with it. Why did they think they could get away with it? Because they saw thousands of anti-Semites across this country protesting the streets, defacing public property, not just someone's individual book, but public landmarks and schools and buildings, and not getting even a slap on the wrist. That's on the hands of the Biden administration to make someone think they could get away with this and to really instill fear and hatred against an individual.
Yep. Let's go ahead and try to get as many calls as we can. Again, that's the work of the ACLJ, which you should support at aclj.org. Or if you're brand new, hit that subscribe button. You have to donate the first time here, but we encourage you, if you are a frequent viewer of this or you like what we do and you want to make sure you're protected as well, aclj.org. Let's go ahead and take Ronald, who's calling from South Carolina, watching on Rumble, one of our favorite free speech platforms. Ronald, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call. Yeah, and you were correct when I had that thought as to, this was not the first time that has happened, and I actually remembered watching the Reagan inauguration when it was moved into a secured inside place because of the frigid temperatures, and I think it was more health than protection of the president. I think maybe you can probably use that as the underlying base for that, but I think it's just had to do with the fact of literally having citizens come all the way out there being exposed to frigid temperatures for a prolonged period of time.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
I think absolutely. But of course, you had Ronald Reagan also had an attempted assassination just a few years before that, was shot. That all happened. So we can't, forget that there are some similarities here, if you will, in terms of the weather, the security, and all of that. But Ronald, yeah, you're right. This isn't the first time this has happened. And there are other ways you can celebrate. And it seems like they are creating that option for the people that are going there live. They can attend. If you have a ticket, it looks like, I don't know all the details. I'm sure you'll get it. If you are attending, you can go to the Capital One Arena to watch, and President Trump will appear towards the end of that, I'm sure, after his inauguration. Quickly, Paul in Oklahoma. You are on the air as well. I know this is a little bit of a different topic, but we're running out of time. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've always been a strong supporter of IDF and Israel's right to exist as people. And I was concerned with the hostage negotiation deal, but realizing that they've always played chess to our tic-tac-toe, I think they're going to do all right. And if they fail, well, God's going to have platform to demonstrate his saving hand to all the nations.
Yeah, Paul, I think that's true for a lot of people. We have to see what comes out of this.
And there was a slight delay in the moving forward of that deal. The War Cabinet did sign off on it today, and then it went to a vote for the full cabinet for them to move forward with this hostage deal. Yeah. And as you can go back and watch yesterday's show or the day before, we even say this may not be the best deal on paper, but it's the deal that can be made now.
It's the deal that can save lives.
It's the deal that can be saved lives. And we know that also there is a president in the White House that will support Israel going forward if they want to wipe out Hamas, as we believe they should.
Right. We are seeing echoes of Ronald Reagan multiple times throughout this week, and whether that's the inauguration or whether that is the situation at hand in the Middle East. I want to encourage you and tell you to really consider supporting the work of the ACLJ and consider becoming an ACLJ champion. That's someone that gives on a monthly recurring basis. Set it and forget it. Of course, you can cancel at any time. Donations are tax deductible. So do that right now. Give monthly. Scan the QR code on your screen right now or just go to aclj.org and you can opt in. Of course, one-time gifts are very appreciated as well. And I want to thank everyone who's watching online. If you're brand new, hit that subscribe button, or if you're watching on all the other platforms, just make sure that you are following us each and every day. We'll be back next week with full coverage of the inauguration and so much more. It's going to be a busy week next week. Go to aclj.org to help us be ready.